confidence that the battle is, we are winning the battle. Well, thank Paul for the introduction and his wonderful statement. I do want to introduce my wife, Carol, sitting over here. She's put up with me for 55 years, so she has to be pretty good. And we have my granddaughter with us, Linda. We have 18 grandchildren. You know, one of the rules that I've had in campaigning for liberty, in and out of politics, education. Turn it up! Is that, what are they saying? They can't hear me? Can't hear me, how about that? Speak up! No, one of my rules has always been that it's a tedious job, it's very serious, it's very dangerous what we're involved in. So, in the meantime, when we get together with like-minded people, the one admonition I have is have some fun. It sounds like you are already doing that, so that is wonderful. But you know, it seems to me like you already know the message, you already know the philosophy. So I was thinking about giving you the shorthand version. You know, like, just giving you a word or two, like the Constitution. Sound money. And the Fed. Repeal the 16th Amendment. Equal justice under the law. Repeal the president's power to assassinate American citizens. Repeal the authority for the president to use the military to arrest American citizens without trial. Fight only wars that are declared win them and come home. End all the constitutional wars going on today and bring our troops home. Balance the budget. Repeal the Patriot Act. Well, that's boring. You don't want to do that. You want me to give a speech, don't you? No, it is wonderful, and we know what we have to do, and it's very serious. I have very good news for you, though. America is waking up. The bad news is Washington is still sound asleep. But our job is to wake Washington up. Make sure they hear our message. A lot of people get discouraged and they want to give up and they say, well, it's too far gone, the Republic is gone, the Republican century is gone. But I tell you what, we still have enough freedom. We have enough freedom to come here and express ourselves. But also, we also know that if we speak out, Washington will listen. Most people, you'll be surprised to hear this, but most people who represent us in Washington don't have strong convictions. So they can be persuaded. And the way they're persuaded is send them a message and say, straighten up or you're coming home. Take for instance what has happened on Stop Online Piracy Act. You helped to stop that. They took that off the calendar. So they will listen. So as more join us and more send the messages to Washington, we don't have to convert all of them, but we have to convert the sentiment of this country, and the sentiment has to concentrate on one issue. That is the defense of liberty. We didn't get into this mess in one term, one each one seems to get worse is the big problem. But we more or less got off track on defending our republic, probably 100 years ago. Certainly, the Woodrow Wilson era was a bad era for the United States. But the founders of this country understood this, and they warned about us. They were very explicit. They said, you will have a republic, but it won't be there unless you defend it and protect it. They had their worries, but they were explicit when they said, we don't want to give you a democracy. A democracy can be very dangerous. Majorities can get together and suppress the minorities, and that is what we should have prevented. But now we have a form of dictatorship, of majority rules. Rights are now relative, and we have a lot of clout in Washington, and have powerful lobbyists. Unfortunately, they're ruling the day. Because of that, those individuals who benefit from the system that we have of money and spending, when they get into trouble, guess what? Because they're in charge, they get the bailouts, and they dump all the debt and the problems on the American people and on the middle class. That is what we have to change. But this system, back in the Woodrow Wilson era, with the monetary system changed, the tax system changed, the foreign policy changed, and gradually we have lost our republic. There's not a whole lot left. Now we're coming up with these dictatorial mandates from the executive branch, assassination of American citizens, the arrest by military, and this is both by the president taking this power, usurping the power on his own, plus the Congress delivers powers to the executive branch. This is one thing where I would be different. I would not be a president that would want to, think I could, or think I should run your life. That's not the job of the president.
We're sending a message, and it's getting louder every
policy of the founders were very clear. We should have a strong national defense. It was not a state issue to defend this country. But they also said go to war very rarely and go to war under explicit conditions, and it's not to be done by the declaration of the president. You declare war by the Congress through the people going into the Congress and declare war. Just think if we stopped and tried to calculate how many lives, how many wounded, how many dollars would have been saved if since World War II we had never gone to war because we never declared a war. Think how much more prosperous this country could have been. But instead we had the indoctrination that this country could have guns and butter because we had the printing press, we had the reserve currency of the world. People still today trust it more than it deserves. So we have an element where we get in subsidize the military-industrial complex, have perpetual war. At the same time, we never have any restraints on the entitlement system. The entitlement system is set up to help the poor people. But guess what? The poor people get the crumbs and the rich get all the entitlements. But the system will not last much longer because we are truly bankrupt. And this is the difference. In the past, we've had our ups and downs, but it's different now than ever before because we are the biggest debtor nation in the history of the world. And at a time we were living off the taxes, then we started borrowing. It's too bad Jefferson didn't have his way and make a prohibition against borrowing. But just as he was against borrowing money, he was absolutely opposed to the central banking system because he knew, as other founders knew, that when the government gets control of the money, they always abuse the money and they always debase the currency. those who come home, 44,000 have had severe injuries, so many amputations, blinded people, and they sort of, you talk about the poor falling through the cracks. How many veterans do we have that we're allowing to fall through the cracks? It's tragic to think of sending them off to these wars and forgetting about them. We need to reverse that attitude. Today are begging for help for post-traumatic stress syndrome. One veteran came up to me not too long ago and he says, when I was over there and seeing my buddies killed, it was tragic and it was so depressing. But since he's been home, he says it's so tragic because he frequently hears now of some buddies committing suicide. So it is sad, and we need to quit burying our heads in the sand. Wars like this are not justified. The cost is too high, and we need to change the foreign policy of this country. Business and have a strong national defense. No nation building, no occupation, no policemen of the world, no subsidies to the military-industrial complex, which very simply means, with a constitutional president, the ships would immediately go to the Middle East and around the world and bring the troops home. In Washington, D.C. 9/11 was a very difficult day and a period of time in our history. But we had been propagandized, and still the majority of the American people probably believe that we were attacked because we're free and prosperous. That is not true. But it was an opportune time for those who love big government. They had a bill planned to pass anyway, and that's how they got the Patriot Act passed, by arguing that it was necessary. But you know, when that bill was passed, I was talking to a member of Congress next to me, and I said, "Why are you voting for it?" He said, "How can I vote against the Patriot Act at times like this?" And I said, "Have you read it?" "No." "Do you know there's bad stuff in it?" He said, "Yeah, I know it." He said, "But how can I go home and explain this to my people if I vote against the Patriot Act?" I said, "Well, that's your job. Go home and explain it to your people how you did it." But if that bill had been called Repeal the Fourth Amendment, maybe it wouldn't have passed. So when we have the opportunity to do something about it, when we introduce the legislation, to propose the legislation to deal with the Patriot Act, we shouldn't call it Repeal the Patriot Act. We should say, Restore the Fourth Amendment Act. Then under those conditions, when you go to the airport, they would have to have probable cause before they make you take your clothes off. Also the excuse they used to go into Iraq. But it turned out Iraq didn't have any Al-Qaeda. They had no weapons of mass destruction, and yet they had decided years before that Iraq had to go, and we had to have regime change. The first speech I gave against the war going into Iraq was in 1998, because they explicitly said that's what we're going to do. And That's what they ended up doing, but they used the 9/11 as the excuse to go in. So it is in times of emergency that we have to be the most alert to the attack on our liberties. When there are wars going on, people say, well, we have to give up a little bit of our liberties to be safe. Let me tell you, you never have to give up any liberty because of the pretense of being safe. Specifically in these last 5 years, it had become readily apparent to almost all Americans there's something seriously wrong. They have not all come to the same conclusion. We have Tea Party people out there expressing themselves. We have people occupy Wall Street. They're complaining, and I think there's a lot of anger and being upset. But can you imagine what will happen if and when the collapse of the dollar comes? That we will be, the world will be like Greece is right now. Angry people saying, where is my entitlement? Where is my entitlement? You can't cut anything. So this is what we have to try to prevent. But we have to re-educate ourselves. Entitlement sounds very good. Entitlement almost sounds like a right. Yeah, we're entitled to our life and our liberty. We're entitled to work hard and keep what we earn. But today, entitlement means you're entitled because you want something, you need something, you demand something. You're entitled to your neighbor's property. That's theft. We don't believe in that. But under these conditions, it's systematically that our individual liberties will be attacked, and that we don't understand that the important thing is that liberty is an individual matter. It is not a collective matter. We do not have our liberty because we happen to belong to one group. And we should never have punishments against a group because they belong to a group. But likewise, nobody should get any privileges because they belong to a group. We all should be individuals. Today now, individual rights are being undermined and our rule of law is being undermined. The Congress delivered to the President just recently. And he actually signed into law on January 1st the bill that says the military can arrest any American citizen without due process, without charges, without a trial, and held indefinitely in secret prisons. Now that, we do realize that we've slipped away from a true republic. We're into a much more democracy where the dictatorship of the majority comes. But now we're slipping into a fascist system where there's a combination of government and big business and authoritarian rule and the suppression of the individual right of each and every American citizen. That is what we have to reverse and get the people to agree with us. Freedom is the answer, big government is the problem. What we have to do is convince the people that it's in their best interest to defend liberty, and just saying, no, we want the government to take care of us. We want transfer of wealth. We want the government to give us free health care, free education, and free housing. But right now, people are waking up. The government is broke, and they know it's ending, and something else has to come about. And over the many decades, we've been able to pull ourselves out because we weren't in such debt. Now we have a national debt and a foreign debt. The spending is totally out of control. Of all the candidates now running, and even the ones that aren't running anymore, not one single candidate has proposed actually cutting the budget. That's what we need to do, is cut the budget. But the bigger the government is, the smaller the people. Because the government cannot exist without the undermining of your economic liberties and your personal liberties. And that is what is at threat today. Because the government believes that they can regulate our personal lives, our personal lifestyles, and the government has no business doing that. Approximately 100 years ago, our country took freedom and chopped it into pieces. They talked about economic liberty. A few people defended that rather well. And then they had social liberties and personal liberties, and a few others would defend that. But we should bring people together and say the purpose of government is to defend social, personal liberty and economic liberty. They're one and the same. If a society was based on personal liberty, if it actually made us poorer, if I were poorer and I could live in a free society, guess what? I'd rather have my liberty than to just have more wealth. But the most important thing is you don't have to give up any wealth. If you desire your liberty and don't desire the government to redistribute wealth, we will have our liberty and we will have our wealth as well. History has shown that the freer a society, the wealthier the society. The freer the society, the larger the middle class. The freer the society, the better the wealth is distributed. When special interest gets controlled, they get the bailouts and they get the subsidies, and the middle class shrinks. Our middle class is shrinking. It's also getting poorer. It's also much more in debt. The debt that the people who are making a lot of money during the bubble formation, that debt was dumped on the American people. And that is why the middle class is feeling this. And the way the government does this, there's always a shrinking and a damage to the middle class with the destruction of a currency. But today the middle class is bearing the burden. And this is why the jobs aren't there. And this is why students are getting out of college and they have all this debt and they don't have jobs. It's a deeply flawed system, and people are realizing this. So instead of saying, oh, throw up our hands, we can't do anything about it, it is the opportunity to come up with a better idea, and that is what we have, is a better idea. We must remember, an idea whose time has come cannot be stopped by armies or governments or dictators. But the wonderful side effect about a free society and defending personal liberty is the fact that we come together no matter how we might use our liberty. Because diversity would come together, not because we agree with everybody's lifestyle, or not because we agree with their religion, or not because we agree with what books they're going to read, but we come together because what we want is to make our own decisions on how we want to use our own freedom. So when we bring people together, it should be a diverse group of people. And this is why I'm always very pleased. Who knows, tonight we might even have a few people who don't even call themselves Republicans coming to hear the bookworm message of liberty. The ideas of liberty are rather young. They claim, and they have frequently accused me, and I'm sure that means they accuse you as well, that you want to go back to the Dark Ages. You want to go back to that Constitution. That Constitution, oh, you have to have a modern Constitution. You have to modernize. You don't want to go back to the 19th century. But I tell you what, freedom is a very new idea when you look at it historically. But those individuals who disagree with us are the ones who want to really go backwards, because they are moving us into a tyrannical society, and tyranny's been around too long. So the little bit of test that we had, which was a short period of time, and we've done so well, we had a great and prosperous society, and now it's under attack. And we've, at time after the prosperity came from the free society, we forgot about what produced the wealth, and all we did was fight among ourselves and go to the government, hire lobbyists to fight on the redistribution of wealth, and that lasted for 50 years or so, but it's different now. We no longer can afford the wars. We no longer can afford the entitlement system, the special interests. We no longer can afford this funny money system that passes out trillions of dollars and are prepared to bail out Europe. It's all coming to an end, and that's a blessing. It's a blessing because we have another answer. To go back and restore those principles of America, we don't go back in a fixed manner, because what we do is go back and pick up on those principles. The monetary system was much better in the 19th century than we have now, but we can do better than that. There's much more knowledge about money and banking than ever before, so the understanding of civil liberties is even better, and the understanding of a free society and how markets work, it's much more sophisticated. So we go back and pick up the pieces and we move forward. We advance the cause of liberty rather than saying we're back to the Dark Ages. We want to give up this notion that when we get into trouble because we have too much government, that the answer is we have more government. We don't need more government. For me, we don't need international government either. We don't need to be going to war under the UN banner. We have too much federal government because the federal government was supposed to be small, and they reserved the rights and the powers to the states. And then we have too much government at our state level very often. We sometimes have local government that gets excessive. Ultimately, in a free society, the best government is self-government. That's the government that we want. Self-government means that you make all the decisions for yourself. You don't make this assumption that government can protect us from ourselves. Which means that if we're allowed to pick our own religion and read our own books, we ought to be able to pick everything that we want to put into our bodies. We would, in a free society, in a free society, we would even allow you to drink raw milk. We want choices. Yes, some people make bad choices, but some people might want to make choices the government won't allow us to make, like alternate medical treatments, you know, and holistic medicine, vitamins, and nutritional products. And that taking away of our liberty was all the consequence of the nanny state and the do-gooders that would say, well, you know, drinking alcohol was bad, so they tried prohibition. It didn't work, so they decided, well, we have to keep those bureaucrats and the federal police busy, so they decided we'd have a war on drugs. The war on drugs has cost us... Since 1970, the war on drugs has cost us probably $3 trillion or more, undermined our civil liberties, and it has accomplished nothing. It has done a great deal of harm, is what it's done. Repeal the war on drugs. So the answers, the problems are there, the answers are there, they're not complex. And the movement is here because today there's a lot of people coming together, like I mentioned before. They're not all standard Republicans coming together with this message. And at one time, I was energized so much by the young people, and it does energize us. This whole new generation is interested in these values and this philosophy. Also welcome to the fold a few people who are over 30 this stuff and got pretty disgusted with it because they felt disenfranchised, and they're coming back into the fold. So we have this great opportunity. The elections are coming up. Please participate. Please be energized. Please have a lot of fun. And just remember, freedom is popular. Thank you very much.